Okay, so to help you with number 3 now, this time we're looking for the... I don't think I've written it out properly. Find the y to minus 1 term. Right, so find the y to minus 1 term in the expansion. It's asking for the full term, not just the coefficient, but it's the same thing essentially. So you've got to expand this out, y minus 1 over y to the power of 5. So we know, again, using the formula here, theorem, that it's going to be 5 because we've got the power of 5 something. Now, it's got to be y to the power of 5, take away whatever that number is, negative 1 over y to the power of whatever that number there is. Right, so we've got to basically put all this together and end up with something that gives us y to the power of negative 1. So, unlike the last question, where in question 2 you only needed to look at the 3x cubed part of the bracket, this is a wee bit more complicated because both parts inside the bracket have got y's. So when you multiply the whole lot together, when you're tidying all that up, you've got to take into account this bit and this bit. So just to show you how it doesn't work, why it doesn't work, so just picking out a 1 at the front, because you might think that'd be the correct thing to do. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So put a 1 there, so that's going to have to be a 1 there, and that's going to have to be a 1 there. In which case, I've rewritten it just below. One's here. Now I've just changed negative 1 over y to negative y to the power of negative 1. So you might initially think that it's just going to be a power of 1 there, because you've got this y to the power of negative 1. And y to the power of negative 1 to the power of 1 is still just y to the power of negative 1. And yes, okay, that's fine. But when you multiply it with this, you're not going to have y to the power of negative 1 overall. You're going to have 5, 1. And I'm not going to bother working this bit out because I don't really need to know what the coefficient is right away. I just need to know whether this bit here gives me y to the power of negative 1. Well, this bit's going to be y to the power of 4. And it's going to be negative y to the power, because you're timesing these together, so it's just going to be negative 1. And when you tidy that up, you've got to add the powers, if you remember that rule from indices. So add the 4 and the negative 1, so it's going to be negative y to the power of 3. So that doesn't give us the negative 1 power of negative 1 term that we're asked for. So I just showed you that to show you why it's not 1. Now you could do it through a bit of trial and error, but hopefully you'll be able to spot if you have, let's just leave that number blank there just now, y to the power of 5 minus something again, and then it's negative y. I'll just leave it, rather than writing it as 1 over y, I'll just write it like this, negative y to negative 1 to the power of something. So this number, and this number, as you know, all have to be the same. Now basically what I need to know is 5 take away something multiplied by that times that has to be equal to negative 1. So let's just call it 5 take away x. I could pick any letter I want. I'm just picking x because x hasn't been used in this question at all yet. So 5 take away x. And then what we're doing is we're adding it, because remember, you're adding the powers. If you look back over here, you add the powers together. So that plus, then you're doing negative 1. We multiply those together. So it's negative 1 times x. If you do all that, so x just this number here that we don't know yet, and all of that has to be equal to negative 1. So you can use trial and error, but this is a wee bit more mathematical. So it's going to be 5 take away x equals negative 1. Therefore, we've got 5 take away 2x is negative 1. So take off the 5. So negative 2x equals negative 6 divided by negative 2. So algebra tells us it's x equals 3. And we can just check that, just tidy it all up. So it's going to be 5, 3. So 5 take away 3 is going to be 2. And it's negative y to negative 1, and that's to the power of 3. So 5, 3, y squared, and that'll be negative y to negative 3, like so. We're going to add our powers. So 2 plus negative 3 is negative 1. So our coefficient is whatever that comes to, with a negative in front of it. So we can work that out as well. So that would be 5 factorial over 3 factorial, 5 minus 3 factorial. So that would be 5 times 4 times 3 factorial over 3 factorial, 2 factorial. Well, 2 factorial is just 2, because just 2 times 1. So that cancels out with that. So we just get 5 times 4 is 20. 20 over 2 is 10. We get that. And then we can finish off by writing this out as negative 10 y to negative 1. And that is y to the power of negative 1 term in the expansion.